When aliens with superintelligence invaded Earth, the world needed someone who had the ability to time loop to save humanity. Hello everyone. Today, I will be telling you about the 2012 sci-fi thriller movie, The Edge of Tomorrow. Enjoy the story.
What's next?
Hey Sarge, the new guy. What's his name again?
Sometime in the future, aliens invaded Earth via asteroids and they swiftly conquered most of Europe and threatened to wipe out humanity. These creatures, known as mimics, proved to be an overwhelming force, and in response, humanity developed advanced exoskeleton suits to enhance the soldiers' combat abilities. The war rages on, and in an effort to rally support, the military enlists Major William Cage, a media relations officer, to document the battlefield and boost morale among the soldiers. Soon, Cage arrives in England via helicopter, believing he is there to receive his next assignment. However, General Brigham has other plans. He informs Cage that he will be deployed alongside frontline troops, and he will be filming the invasion. Realizing the magnitude of what he has just been told, Cage panics, insisting he has no combat experience. But the general makes it clear that this is a direct order. Desperate to escape, Cage tries to blackmail the general, thinking he has found a way out. But as soon as he steps out of the office, the general gives the order for his arrest.
Arrest this man. What?
He attempts to flee but is quickly subdued and tasered. Cage wakes up disoriented and finds himself lying on a pile of luggage at a military base. Soon, a no-nonsense sergeant and Master Sergeant Farrell greet him with zero sympathy. However, Cage immediately tries to explain that there has been a mistake, demanding to contact his superiors, but Farrell shows him paperwork branding him as a deserter. There is no escape, and he is taken to join his new team, the J Squad. It was a unit filled with rough, unpredictable soldiers who have no respect for him. Farrell ensures that Cage is under their watch, making them personally responsible if he attempts to flee. Forced to gear up for battle the next day, Cage struggles to operate the bulky exosuit while his new teammates mock his incompetence. He pleads for help, worried he might hurt someone, but his squad mate reassures him. His weapons' safety are on. Before he can protest further, they march onto a transport aircraft that will take them to the war zone. Cage, terrified, tries to escape but he is caught. On board the aircraft, he fumbles with his suit as he keeps failing to disengage the safety on his weapons. The briefing is cut short as the aircraft is hit by enemy fire. Soldiers scramble to jump out, many dying before even reaching the ground. Cage hesitates as he is paralyzed by fear, and he is the last to drop just before the plane explodes. He crashes onto the battlefield, face first into the sand, and is immediately thrown into chaos. Planes crash around him, killing entire squads on board. One of his teammates is crushed by falling debris of one of the aircraft, while another is vaporized by an enemy blast. The battlefield is a massacre. Still struggling to get his weapons working, Cage realizes the weapon's interface is stuck in Japanese. Before he can process this, another plane crashes toward him. He barely ducks in time, surviving by sheer luck while others around him are taken out. In the distance, he spots a female soldier, Rita Vrataski, wielding a massive sword against the mimics. She fights ferociously, however, she is also suddenly struck and killed right in front of him. Cage starts to panic all over once more. He runs in the opposite direction as he tries to escape once, but he is intercepted by Farrell, forcing him to regroup with J Squad. Their worst fears are confirmed. The mimics were expecting them. The unit takes cover in a trench, bracing for the inevitable attack. In the meantime, Cage still can't disengage his weapon's safety, leaving him defenseless. Suddenly, something starts appearing from the ground. The mimics are already upon them. The creatures tear through the squad with horrifying speed. Cage finally manages to unlock his weapons and fires wildly, managing to kill one of the alien creatures. But before he can celebrate, another mimic emerges. This one is larger and distinctly different from the others. But Cage's weapon was empty now. With no other option, Cage grabs an explosive charge and braces for impact. As the alien lunges, he detonates the device, killing the creature. But in its final moments, the mimic's blood engulfs Cage as it burns through his flesh, melting his face. His body disintegrates and suddenly he screams as he opens his eyes. He was back on top of the same pile of luggage. The bus drives past just like before, and this time, he notices something he missed earlier. The woman painted on the bus is the same soldier he had seen fighting on the battlefield. He is greeted exactly as before and dragged into J Squad, every event unfolding identically. But now, Cage holds an advantage. He remembers everything from the previous loop. When the battle begins, Cage tries to use his knowledge to change the outcome. He reaches the battlefield and on one occasion, he manages to save the woman before she's killed. However, his victory was short-lived because he was struck by gunfire and he collapsed from the pain. Instead of helping him, the woman takes his suit's power cell and leaves him behind. The last thing he sees is a mimic lunging at him before everything resets. He wakes up again, reliving the same moment. This time, determined to prove what's happening, he tries to convince the sergeant by revealing personal information about the sergeant, information he shouldn't know. However, his attempt to explain fails and he's still dragged into J-Squad. He then attempts to warn his squad mates, but they dismiss him as insane and even had to duct tape his mouth shut as they go for the battle the next day. Back on the beach, he desperately tries to save his team, but is crushed by a falling plane. Over and over, he dies, each time improving his skills and learning from past mistakes. His movements become sharper, his reactions faster. He memorizes every danger before it happens. Eventually, he reaches the woman again and saves her from the mimics. This time, she doesn't leave him behind. Instead, she recognizes what's happening. Without hesitation, she drops her sword and tells him to find her when he wakes up. A second later, an explosion kills them both. Cage resets once more. This time, he doesn't just focus on himself. He helps his squad avoid punishment from their sergeant, subtly manipulating events to improve their chances. He continues training with the team as he attempts to escape to find Vrataski. At first, he fails, but after multiple attempts, he successfully rolls under an army truck and manages to avoid detection. Then, he proceeds to track down Rita Vrataski. The moment he meets her and explains what's happening, she immediately understands. She's been through the same thing before. She reveals that she once had the same ability but lost it. She further explains that the power comes from an alpha mimic the blue variant Cage had unknowingly killed. When he absorbed its blood, he inherited its ability to reset time. Vrataski immediately takes him to meet Dr. Carter, a physicist and expert in mimic biology. Carter is the only person who believes Vrataski's story. He explains that mimics function like a vast nervous system, controlled by a central intelligence known as the Omega. The Omega uses the alpha mimics as its scouts, resetting time whenever one of them dies. Because of this, the Omega can always predict the future and manipulate events to ensure victory for the aliens. Even when humanity wins battles, it's only because the Omega allows it, adjusting its strategy for the long game. Vrataski once had visions of the Omega's location, but she never made it there before losing her ability. Since Cage hasn't had visions yet, they still have time to prepare, and his training begins almost immediately. However, all didn't go according to their plan as Cage struggles during the sessions with Vrataski. The automated drones break his back multiple times, with each failure ending the same way. Vrataski shoots him in the head to reset the loop. She teaches him one critical rule. He must never allow himself to receive a blood transfusion. If he does, he will lose the power forever. Day after day, he dies in training, but with each reset, he improves. Then it happens, Cage finally has a vision. He describes the location to Dr. Carter, and they begin plotting their escape from the battlefield. Time after time as they attempt their mission, Vrataski dies before they can reach the location. After several attempts, Cage becomes frustrated and he stops trying. One day, he abandons the mission altogether and heads to London. He sits in a bar and takes some drinks. It is there that he learns the inevitable truth. Without intervention, the mimics will eventually take over London as well. So, more determined than ever, Cage returns to training, and he soon becomes an expert warrior after countless cycles of death and rebirth. But despite his mastery, Dr. Carter realizes their current approach isn't enough. He pinpoints the Omega's location, but Cage insists that no matter how hard they try, they can't make it past the beach. Determined to break the cycle, Cage and Vrataski land on the battlefield, cutting through the mimics with lethal precision while their squad watches in awe. They push past the chaos and reach a nearby trailer park, where they plan their next move. Vrataski soon finds an abandoned caravan, but in the rush to escape, she forgets to detach the trailer as she speeds off with Cage. Just when they think they're in the clear, a mimic bursts from inside the trailer. Cage fights it off as he manages to kill the creature, and they continue their journey. As Vrataski drives, Cage surprises her by asking about her personal life. She's taken aback, realizing that this isn't the first time he's had this conversation. The way he speaks to her, the familiarity in his voice, it's clear that they have shared some personal information across multiple loops. Eventually, they run out of gas and stumble upon a farmhouse. Cage's suit battery is depleted too, forcing him to abandon the exoskeleton. Behind the barn, they discover an old helicopter and Vrataski insists that Cage fly it. However, Cage hesitated as he feared he would crash. She brushes off his concern and moves to untie the helicopter. That was when Cage notices something. She's been injured on the shoulder. A deep wound she's been hiding is now impossible to ignore. He patches her up, but she continues to insist on finding the keys to the aircraft. After telling her to relax for the time being, Cage hands her a cup of coffee and casually adds extra sugar, just like Vrataski likes it. Realization immediately dawns on Vrataski. She had never told him how she takes her coffee. It confirms what she suspected. They've been here before. Dozens of times, maybe more. So, she immediately demands the truth, and Cage finally confesses. He's always had the keys, but he doesn't want to fly the helicopter because in every loop where he does, she dies. Ignoring his warnings, she takes the keys and starts the aircraft. And just like Cage said, the noise of the helicopter triggers an immediate mimic attack. Cage watches in horror as events unfold just as he feared. The helicopter is shot down, and when he finally reaches her, he finds that she's been badly injured and eventually dies. As the surrounding mimics close in, Cage meets the same fate. This time, when he wakes up, he makes a choice. He will go alone. So, without telling Vrataski, he takes extra ammunition and a fresh battery and heads to the farmhouse by himself. He flies the helicopter and reaches the supposed location of the Omega. But instead of victory, he walks straight into a trap. Inside the facility, the Omega is nowhere to be found. Instead, he is surrounded by waves of mimics. At first, they didn't kill him. Instead, they wound him and let him bleed out slowly. That's when he realizes their plan. The mimics are trying to keep him alive, just long enough for him to lose too much blood to reset the loop. In his final moments, he fights back the pain and drowns himself, which eventually forces a reset. Back in the loop, he warns Vrataski and Dr. Carter that the visions are nothing but bait. So, Vrataski tells him that the only way to truly find the Omega must be by using a device Carter had created. It was a transponder that Carter thinks could locate the Omega. But there's one problem. It is currently being held by the General. So, Cage and Vrataski decide to infiltrate the General's office as Cage proves his knowledge of the future, predicting every move. Time and time again, they've tried to convince the General to help, but he always refuses. However, this time, he surprises them and he opens the safe and hands over the transponder. But as soon as they step outside, the military turns on them. Soldiers attack, and they barely manage to escape in a stolen car. During the chaos, Cage uses the transponder and his mind is immediately linked to the location of the Omega. A vision floods his brain as he realizes that the Omega is in Paris. But before they can act, a soldier wearing an exosuit smashes into their vehicle, knocking them unconscious. Cage wakes up in a hospital, his body weak and his mind groggy. He looks down and immediately understands what has happened. A nurse has given him a blood transfusion. Soon, Vrataski finds him, ready to do what she always does, kill him and reset the loop. But this time, Cage stops her. He tells her that the cycle has broken. His power is gone. And now there are no second chances. So, Cage and Vrataski sneak out of the hospital and track down the J-Squad. This time, with Vrataski by his side, he convinces them to help. Together, they steal a military aircraft and head straight for Paris. But before they reach the Omega's location, a swarm of mimics attacks and the plane is ripped apart midair, and most of the team is killed on impact before the crash landed. Now low on weapons and running out of options, they regroup near the wreckage. Their chances of reaching the Omega are almost nothing. That's when Cage comes up with a desperate plan. He proposed that they use the aircraft's secondary motors to propel themselves toward the target. As they prepared, two of their teammates sacrificed themselves to stay behind, holding off the enemy in order to buy them time. As soon as the engine roared to life, the mimics attacked and they slaughtered the remaining soldiers, leaving only Cage and Vrataski alive. They eventually crash into the building and make a final sprint toward the Omega's hiding place. But just as they reach the parking garage above it, an Alpha blocks their path. They realize that there's no way forward. Then Vrataski makes a decision. She will sacrifice herself to lure the Alpha away. Cage refuses, but she tells him this is the only way to end the war. She wishes she had met him under different circumstances, then kisses him for the first and last time before sprinting away to lure the Alpha away from Cage. As she did, the Alpha takes the bait and kills her instantly. However, Cage immediately seizes the moment and dives into the flooded chamber below. There he finds the Omega under the waters, pulsating with alien energy. However, the Alpha immediately follows after Cage and stabs him through the chest. But Cage smiles as he has removed the pins from the grenades. Suddenly, a massive explosion rings out and kills the Omega, and in an instant, every other mimic on Earth collapses and dies. As Cage drifts into unconsciousness, the Omega's blood fuses with his body once more. His eyes turn black and then suddenly, he wakes up again. However, this time, he was back in the helicopter, on his way to meet the General. After he landed, he found that the war was already over. A massive explosion had wiped out the mimics that morning. He rushed to J-Squad and was happy to find that they were all alive. Then he goes to see Vrataski too. She looks at him, confused as she wonders who he was. But instead of answering, he just smiles as he is overwhelmed with happiness. And that is the movie Edge of Tomorrow, a 2012 sci-fi thriller. If you enjoyed the recap, consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.